This is going to be the first episode of this Ark Survival Evolved playthrough. Now, let's go over some rules of how I'm going to be playing this server. First things first, it's basically going to be a primal/tribal playthrough, which means no guns, no tech gear, no fabricator. Some of the gear that is made in the smithy is going to be on a case-by-case basis, but in general, I'm not going to go modern. It's going to be primarily primal gear only. Now, I do have some mods that are going to be active during this playthrough. One of them is the Ark additions. Pretty much all of them are going to be active. I also have the exotic animals from RP Star, which means I'm going to have a lot of creatures from the Atlas game present. There are also some weapon mods that I added to help give a little bit more weapon variety for the primitive theme. However, they don't really work, and you'll see why later on in this video. And now for myself, I do have some server settings that are going to be different. Now, primarily all of my server settings are going to be default rates. However, I do have ×3 harvest to make it a little bit easier for a solo player. I will have fast taming, as this server is not one that I could just leave on running. I do have to log off at some point, so faster taming is beneficial for a solo player. And there's also fast experience gains, though that won't really help me because I still need to grind, farm, and build all of the stuff that I need to survive, so being able to have access to something at a certain level is still not really going to help me as much. So that's really what we're looking at for this playthrough. Now we create my character. This is Ursius. He's basically my tribal OC character that I make in every video game I ever play, really. And now we have to launch him into the server. Now, this is the Appalachian map. This is a $3 roughly paid premium map for Ark Ascended. As you see, the northern and the farther reaches are going to be the harder zones. The majority of it is pretty much in the yellow or medium, while the southern shores are easy. I go ahead and select one of the easier realms because I don't know how hard this map is going to be, and I launch myself into the server. Now that I'm in the map, I look around, get my bearings, and see what is around me. With the exception of a couple of dodos, I find a cat. This is one of the creatures that is added from one of the exotic animal mods, and I just have to tame it. So first thing I do is I kill a dodo to get some meat. I slowly crawl towards the cat and try to tame it. It does take a little while, but eventually I do tame the cat. And I name him Bartholomew, and he is going to be my companion throughout this trip. The mod that adds all of the extra primal weapons adds in this station here, the Primal Station, which allows you to create all these new exotic weapons, but unfortunately I need a alpha raptor claw in order to make it. Oh well, so I start grinding. I need to prepare myself and get to building a house for me and Bartholomew. After all, he's just a little kitty. He needs protection from the elements. Eventually I started to get hungry, so I had to make a campfire in order to feed myself, though I realized besides some berries I had on me, I didn't really have any meat. I used all of it to feed Bartholomew earlier, so it's time to go hunting. Now, to be more effective at hunting, I look and find a stone spear. This is one of the primal tools from the mod that I added. It's gonna need a lot of resources, but I go ahead and farm the materials anyway, and when I go to use it, well, look for yourself. Yeah, so it puts me in a T-pose, and it absolutely sucks. I mean, okay, maybe it just puts you in the T-pose when you're just in third person. Maybe you could still use it in first person. So that's what I go to do. I go to try to find a dodo or something that I could fight so I can see how well this spear actually works. Well, unfortunately, not only is the animation absolutely fucked, but when you go to use it, it uses so much energy that after 3 or 4 strikes of using it, it puts me in a torpor state. Needless to say, I threw that spear away and never touched it again. After throwing out that modded spear, I bring forth the good old-fashioned spear that you get in the default Ark. And I continue to farm resources, hunt creatures for hide and meat, and eventually I go out and start exploring the surrounding areas. Now, this map does feature several biomes all throughout the map, including various types of boreal forests. There are meadows, grasslands, and even a badlands up in the northern west corner. Of course, you have small amount of tundra, icebergs, and generally colder areas in this map, though you'll see more of it later on as we explore. For right now, you're going to see a lot of more tropical and temperate forests. While exploring up the river, I notice a Carnotaur on the other side. Now, I am not nearly geared enough in order to take on a Carno, so I turn around and head towards the ocean. You will notice that the water graphics are a bit weird. I'm not sure if that's the map or if that's just my computer, but I don't remember ever seeing this on the island map, so I'm thinking it's more or less the map itself and not my computer. Either way, you'll also notice that there's not a lot of creatures around. Now, that's something I did. I forgot to mention at the beginning of the video that I do have the creature spawn rate reduced by 50%. The reason is when I was doing my aberration playthrough, there were just tons of spawns everywhere. Like, it was so condensed, I couldn't take a step without being mauled by just anything. I felt like there were parasaurs everywhere, bears everywhere, so I turned it down by 50% and forgot to change it for this playthrough. Now, I did turn it up a little bit as it was a little bit too barren for my liking, but you'll see later on there are plenty of creatures to find at around 60%, so that's not going to be an issue later on. I eventually, as I followed the ocean line, found a snow biome. Now, I couldn't quite enter it just yet as there was a blizzard going on, so it was a bit too cold for me to enter without dying. So I decided, you know what, I think I'm going to settle here. And now I have a new goal. I am going to build up and move all of my dinosaurs and belongings to this snow biome where I will settle down permanently. Though on the way home, while thinking about my glorious adventure, I decided to try to take on a Dilo. He had a friend, no problem. So I start fighting both Dilos at the same time with my trusty spear and axe, only to then just get mauled by a terror bird that came out of the blue. So yeah, I respawned back at home and Bartholomew was not impressed. After a little bit more grinding, I make myself bow and arrows, so then I can go explore more, and I hunted a little bit of dodo on the way to get some meat and hide in order to keep crafting. For my last few adventures out, I headed east along the river and the ocean. This time I decided to head northwest and see what this other area had to offer. This is where I found an Ulfend, I believe it's called. This is a creature from one of the mods that I installed, and it's also from the Atlas game. Now, I'm not quite familiar with it because I didn't really play Atlas and it looks ugly as hell, so I decided to try to hunt it. Now, shooting it with the arrow didn't seem to do a lot of damage, but no worry, I had a lot of arrows, though I kept missing every single time. Eventually, at some point, I decided to use the bola that I had created, only to find out that it cannot be used on this creature. So after about several minutes of me trying to kill it, it ran off and I decided to just keep going as I ran out of arrows. Though I did find something to hunt anyway in order to get some more hide to keep crafting. I also noticed up on the hill nearby where I was hunting that Ulfend or whatever it's called, there is a ton of obsidian, and that's going to be a theme on this map. In various areas, you're going to find tons and tons of oil, of obsidian, of metal, pretty much anything you can think of. This map has an abundance of every resource, though in various areas you're not going to find as many, though in other areas it's nothing but. Shortly after, I got ganked by a pack of raptors. Yeah, that was pretty fun. Anyway, I made my way back, gathered my stuff, and I decided I was gonna head home. Though I took a little bit of a detour as, for one, I got lost, and two, just the scenery was very pretty. Like I said, there are many biomes in this map, and all of them are beautiful, at least from the ones that I've seen in my playthrough so far. Anyway, I jumped down the cliff, only to find a really cool looking forest. It was almost like magical, especially with the few trees that are scattered around there that are different than the other ones, like the one you kind of see there in the footage that's kind of illuminated by the light. Anyway, I turned around to see one of the deer creatures. I don't quite remember what it's called. All I know is that the generic term is called the Irish elk. Anyway, I decided now is the time to get my primal hunting on. So I stalk up on it, use my bola, and shoot it down. My first real kill of my primal playthrough. At least, you know, that wasn't a dodo. With the meat and hide in hand, I turned to try to head back home through the forest and soon to be a small jungle along the riverside. I get my shit stolen by a pego, which is every new player's worst nightmare and frustration. I hate these little shits so much. I wish they were never added into the game. Eventually, I do make my way back home, and I gather up a few things and head right back out, because I really need to start taming some creatures. So, my first logical step is to tame a parasaur. Now, I don't have any trank arrows or even a slingshot, all I have is a club and a bola. So I figured, okay, let's try it. I go ahead and bola the parasaur and try to knock it out with the club, though that didn't seem to work as it did absolutely nothing to the parasaur, though I noticed that the parasaur had a child. Now in Ark Ascension, if you kill the adult, you can then tame the baby for free. You just have to raise it up before you can use it. So I then start to chase the parasaur all over, trying to kill it, and goddamn, it just would not go down without a fight. It kept running, I kept chasing, it kept going into the ocean, I swam after it, and eventually, after like 10 minutes of chasing it, making sure the baby was still following, which it was at the time, I eventually killed the goddamn parasaur, only to then turn around and find out that the baby is no longer in sight. I looked for another 10 minutes or so, looking all over for this baby, and I could not find it. So yeah, I ended up having to go home empty-handed and disappoint Bartholomew once again. It's been now several days since I started my adventure, and not a single tame to my name. Well, I guess it's gonna be a little bit longer than I expected before I move to the snow biome for good. So that means I'm gonna have to build a little temporary base. Now, I don't want to build anything too extravagant, and I want to kind of keep in line with this more primitive theme. So I was gonna build a teepee out of thatch. You can build a teepee very easy by using the triangle pieces, which are a new addition to Ark Survival Evolved. Well, rather, Ark Survival Ascended, haha. Anyway, I make myself a little teepee, and I try to put my bed on the inside, but I guess it was blocking the spawning, so I put one foundation on the outside and put my bed there, just pretend it's inside. I gather up Bartholomew, we both go inside of our little teepee and enjoy the sunset together, watching over the northern lights as they dance across the sky. The end of part 1 of this primitive playthrough of the Appalachian map in Ark Survival Ascended. Please stay tuned, like this video, subscribe if you want to see part 2, part 3, and beyond. And I will see you next time. Florida Gator Man out.